massive kudos to Broc, because out of everyone in that team, he was actually the one that was calm and measured.
Welcome, everybody. Guess what? The Valve Bounce. We have got some opinions for you today. We thought this one, we've got our regular pod that's obviously happening as well, but this one, really, Steve and I have been talking a lot about some of the commentary, the fans, the commentary team, the ex-drivers, the current drivers and teams, all around the Supercars finale and how the final system has worked. We've noticed there seems to be this thing that's happening, and the common theme that comes back to Steve and I when we're talking about is this notion or this thing of fairness, Steve. What's fair? Tell me.
Well, the meaning of fair, Damien, is impartial and just without favoritism or discrimination. That's fair.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And you know what? The whole theme of this fairness is really bubbling up because a deserving champion in Chaz Mostert has utilized WAU and him have utilized the final system that's been put in place for over 12 months, where all the teams, all the fans, all the drivers, everybody, they all knew what it meant. They all knew the framework. And yet we're still here now with Chaz being a deserved champion with this notion of sour grapes from Triple Eight. And, you know, every time they lose, they've got this notion that like it's never, they can't just gracefully lose. They've got to lodge protests. They've got to have a complaint. They've got to say, throw the book at Woody. There's just this notion of fairness that fans, depending on which side of the fence you're on, and we'll get to some a bit later where we're even surprised by some of the people that have said certain things out there. And I guess we want to sort of summarize this, and we're just going to talk through a few things. But first, mate, Chaz Mostert. Well done, buddy. Obviously, everybody knows we're long-term tragic fans, but guess what? He's finally done it. He was the most dominant driver over the finals system. And if you take like the old points, everybody's talking about the old points. If you take the old points, but if you take the points over the final system, he was over 100 clear of Broc. So during the final series, Chaz Mostert was unmitigatingly the best driver. Don't you agree?
I agree. He was the man that he deserved it. They turned up at finals. They had the right outlook on how to play this entire system, which everybody knew how to play from the get-go. And he outfoxed the foxy people themselves. The Triple Eight, who usually would have one up on everyone, didn't cross their T's, dot their T's, dot their I's. And it was WAU and Chaz who absolutely blindsided them and came in and dominated. And you can have your opinions on which way you go in terms of finals, but it's undoubtedly true that he is the deserved 2025 champion, because when it counted, he was there.
And we also will say what an amazing year for Broc. And
huge.
We certainly would not have picked, it wouldn't be on the bingo card, that Triple Eight would have had those kind of failures as such a major impact to his championship in the final system.
No.
They're really known for, you know, all of their prep, their high engineering skills, and all the strategy, like everything always runs pretty much perfectly. Had a few trip ups throughout the year, small things, but ultimately we wouldn't have picked that it would be a Triple Eight failure that would hinder his results at the end of the day. But Broc, what a year. You know, mega poles, beating Scotty's total for poles over a year, which was amazing. Great wins. I know you're going to talk about the percentages. I know. But, you know, just an amazing year. And if you don't understand, despite us being on the other side of the fence normally against Brock. If you don't understand what a class act he is as opposed to what Triple Eight are, the way his emotions came through after he'd lost, the speech he gave at the gala on the following night. I mean, an absolute class act that I know I've, not as, I think it would be fair to say that you have been a little harder on Brock and you haven't been a fan, but you've had a moment, I believe, Steve.
No, look, honestly, at the start of the year, I said there was nothing that I'd seen that had represented a pattern, and I like to look for patterns, as you know, that he would be, a championship contender. There was nothing like conclusive. There were moments, sure, but there was nothing that I'd seen that I'd say, yes, he's 100% going to get there. Each time he seemed to get done by his teammates, things like that, right? But as we sort of went through the Sprint Cup and we saw his pole positions and his winning, I did soften. I did say that, I'm starting to see those patterns. I'm starting to see the class come through, and he's working very hard, and it was great to see. And nobody can say, and hand on heart, nobody can say that he wouldn't have been a deserving champion. But sport is one of those lovely things, and sometimes it bites you in the ass. And unfortunately for Brock, it bit him in the ass just when he didn't need it to bite. Like, who would have thought, coming into it, if it was any team you thought would have a problem, it's WAU. They've had some falters all through the season.
Yeah.
And yet it was Triple Eight that couldn't rectify an issue that they knew was a problem before they even hit Adelaide. They replaced all the sensors on the Saturday night on both cars, and it was Brock's car that was hindered. So, say what you will, but at the end of the day, what actually killed Brock was that very issue. So, but yes, I have softened. I have the utmost respect for him. I thought that after the race, when they interviewed him, his emotions and everything else, I thought he held himself impeccably well. And his gala speech was excellent. I would say his team could learn a thing or two, and the team's minions. I think I need to say who that is. Could also learn a thing or two on gracious and defeat, because you're right. Anytime this team seems to find itself on the losing end of the argument or the championship, there is always this narrative punched in that they've been unfairly dealt with. And it's just not the case. It's just not the case. Even if you look at the incident, which we'll talk about later on, there were things that Brock did that would have prevented that. So it's just, don't go blaming Woody. It's not his fault. It's just an unfortunate set of circumstances around the Triple Eight car on that weekend, really, because it did start on the Saturday and it destroyed him on the Sunday.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that I've seen that has changed over the last couple of days, is that initially that incident that happened with Woody seemed to be a big focus by a lot of people who should know a lot better, like the commentary team, for example, that were focusing on that incident. And like, if we could start sort of like breaking that down. But I think something that when we were talking about it prior to the preparation for the pod, you said something, and I was just like, this just really resonates. Is that the way that certain people handle it is that, like, that new final system and the incident with Woody, that didn't tarnish the sport. It hasn't changed the sport. It's the poor commentary and the reaction, after the fact, that caused this to be a bigger issue than it should be. Ultimately, and I know I'm flipping around a little bit on our script here, but
That's okay.
The surprise Pikachu face, insert the meme. WAU were very clear that from Sandown, etc., Woody was going to be the rear gunner. He was going to be charging up. He was going to be going for the win, and he had nothing to lose. They were very clear about how this would work. And in all of that, nothing they ever did was like improper, untoward. people talking really strong language about bringing the sport into disrepute. Like, none of that actually happened. It was the simple fact that one person, one driver who has nothing to lose and knows, if I can take points off this person, that's going to help my teammate. So I'm going to throw it up on the inside. Now, when the only thing you have to do, and it wouldn't have happened anyway because of the sensor issue, his car wouldn't have survived. But the only thing you have to do is finish just behind your opponent, Chaz. What Broc should have done was taken a moment just to let fucking Woody go.
Yeah.
Everybody talked about it at Sandown, right? I guess I'll open it now up to you. Like the Payne, Cam, Waters, like, you've got to make those decisions in the heat of the moment to let things go. And that would have been what I think would have been the smartest move for Broc.
Yeah, so I think if we break down the actual incident itself, Broc gets a poor start. Payne jumps him by quite a margin.
Yep.
Woody's already challenging down into 1 and 2, which means there's only ever going to be one thing happen here. It's going to be out and out attack to get the position, because we all know when we go racing, the fastest way to make position is the start of the race. If you make position at the start of the race, it's much easier to hold them off than it is to try and get them at the back end once everything's settled down, right? So they go up to 4, Broc covers, that's fine. He gets sort of offline. Woody goes down the other way, and then we swing into the left-hander. They come out. At this stage, Broc was probably thinking Woody's going to go to the outside to get the over and under. You watch him actually move left, and what he didn't anticipate was Wood was there. Like, he was there. And he literally decided, like, Wood saw the move left and went, I'm in, right? This is not slow motion. This is decision-making in small increments of time, right? You make a decision. When you're the guy behind, you're making the decision based on what your competitor does in front of you. Broc moves left. The moment he moves left, Wood's like, right, I'm in. And Wood has been doing this all year. This is not a new thing. He dives and he gets in there and then he makes his way through. That's just what he does, right? So I hate the insinuation that some people are making that he's done this on purpose, or, this is a directive from the pit lane to him. It's not. It's opening lap stuff that we see constantly. The unfortunate part is that Broc reacts after the fact when he sees Woody put the nose in, and you can see this, and I implore you to go back if you haven't actually watched this correctly, but you can actually see Broc's car in line with the car parks that are listed along that run, and the car park line gets longer and longer as it goes, right? So that means that Broc is heading for the fence, which is not a normal line. So he's squeezing Woody in. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is that Woody makes contact with the fence, then bounces back off that, and then the wheels interlock, which is what actually spins Broc, not so much the contact or anything like that. It's the interlocking of the wheel that actually spins him off and breaks one of Broc's spokes.
Your favorite topic, just to quickly.
Just my favorite, because I mean, this shouldn't have been rectified earlier.
No,
right?
No.
And even I think Brody's touched on this many times before, and I'm sure he'll touch on it again at some point. But those wheels need to change, because we can't have this. Like, it's a problem for the sport. And we don't want to see that. We want to see hustle and bustle like we're getting. We don't want to see just this contact between wheels that suddenly destroys one's race, right? And this, to be fair, did not actually destroy Feeney's race, because this actually opened up a beautiful narrative where he has to come from the back of the field, just like Brown did last year. Yep. And I actually, I thought, my thought was, shit, this isn't over. He's going to be fired up, right? I wasn't thinking, Feeney's out, or anything like that. I was like, shit, he's going to be fired up and coming, right? So the actual incident itself, I don't think it was fair to punish Wood, because I think both had a part to play in it. Wood got so far up the inside. Like, I would argue that if this had 4 doors, that was B pillar. You can have your own opinions. That's absolutely fine, but you're wrong. No, I'm joking. You can have your opinion. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, and I think that these types of incidents are always going to be seen with that bias lens. We feel, one way, and as I said, that I certainly think I don't think I would ever be a drivers champion because I don't have that mentality. But that I just sort of look at that and just think this guy is like molesting me. He's gonna cause an incident. Like just open the door, let him through, and just sail on the back of him. Because it did then cause some of the pit stop issues, which didn't really impact too much because they're always covered by putting in extra fuel because the hub was kind of played up. But in reality, as we've said, the sensor is the thing that actually ruined his race. And you even saw after that spin, like I think I messaged you and it was like whatever it was, 10 laps later before the sensor thing really started kicking in. And I was just like, man, this guy's already, back in it, like and he's got a bit of a sensor issue. It was just starting. Like how do you beat him? Like it was still that issue of like he was going to be in with a chance despite that happening.
Yeah, he still
Yeah.
had equal and fair opportunity even after that initial hit.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of fairness. Is it unlucky that he had the sensor issue? Absolutely. That's a completely different discussion point because it didn't happen to anyone else. It was just his car.
Yep.
So it's an element of luck. And sometimes in sport, luck plays a big part of it. And you do make your own luck to a certain degree, but something like this is just unlucky. We can look back through the archives, mate. Go back to 1995 when Glenn Seaton was within 8 laps of the finish of the Bathurst 1000 and a 20-cent piece failed and Perkins goes on to win. Like luck is part of it. Sport like this, it just happens. You get these moments in time that, we talk about Bathurst choosing its champion for the year all the time. It's the same thing. It chose its champion, and Mostert was the champion. So, as I said, massive kudos to Broc because out of everyone in that team, he is rightful to actually want to spit venom and be angry and all the rest of it. But he was actually the one that was calm and measured. And it was the rest of his team that was arguably poor sports. Let's go with poor sports. Yeah, poor sports.
Poor sports. I think the only thing that I kind of out of that whole situation, like I agree with what happened on track with you. I'm definitely in alignment there, but I was disappointed with the camera work going to the WAU garage and seeing that celebration that happened as that incident happened. Now, I guess it just didn't sit right with me because typically what you'd see from the teams is a little bit more measured where they kind of do that, really everyone's celebrating because they know this opens the door for Chaz to win the championship. It's not intent. It wasn't like an intent, like, right, Woody, make sure you nail him at, turn 6. But that celebration kind of didn't sit well with me because that sort of felt like it was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that was sort of the one thing that I didn't like too much about.
Yeah, I can see your point of view on that. I have a slightly different take. Personally, for me, this final series has brought a level of tension to the paddock, like the entire paddock, even the ones that aren't involved. The racing has intensified greatly through this final series, and I just think I don't think it's the moment of actually Broc going out that they're, jumping up. Like, I think it's the pure fact that, oh my God, come on, Chaz. Like it's this opportunity has opened up that, we can potentially get this done. And And sometimes, I mean, we've all been there. We've been there at the footy or, anything. And I don't want to put on the footy because everyone's like, it's footy different.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
All sport, mate. It's all sport. It's all about emotion.
Yeah.
Everything's about emotion. Look at soccer. Look at everything. It's just emotion. And because we've really ramped this up with this final series and how much has gotten in there, I think that's just an explosion of that. So I give them a bit of a free pass in that reaction. I think the thing that irked me with the Triple Eight thing, because I know somebody's going, oh, well, you just said that Triple Eight didn't hold themselves, blah, blah, blah. That's after the fact, right? It's not in the moment. In the moment, we all have emotions and that pump out, and it might not come out the perfect way, right? But after the fact, you can actually control it, and you can say, congratulations, Chaz, clearly the best guy on the day. Well done, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have to come back stronger and better next year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a good time for me to sort of bring up this fairness thing, because there are a lot of people that are utilizing the old model where they basically say they're even, let's just talk about even people who are ex-drivers and commentators, etc., that were talking the final system up. And I understand people can change their opinions when they get more information, but
absolutely,
I find it really difficult to understand if we're talking about a fairness system that, okay, yes, if we look at the old model and consistency, number of race wins and poles, Broc has had an elite year.
Absolutely.
But the final system has been in play. Everybody sort of had that notion. And like this what if, okay, what if, we reward the overall champion who was the most consistent as well as the finals winner? And what if, I mean, like, let's talk about fairness, because I had so much deja vu when people were talking about fairness after the weekend, like all these flashbacks. Do you remember 2017? I know this one's been used and people are trying to say it's different, but McLaughlin, Lowndes, basically McLaughlin did, like, mentally, he didn't control himself well enough.
Yep.
But how does the car in front who squeezed Lowndes get the penalty then? But then now with Broc, the car behind is the one that gets penalized? Like, let's put the tinfoil hat on. A lot of these things I'm going to talk about now are fucking against Ford, and it feels like we can never just have a win.
The bias part.
Yeah, because we can't just have a win. They're like, it's always like Rick Kelly in the 2006, basically all the Holdens ganging up on fucking Lowndes. You mentioned Glenn Seaton, in Bathurst.
Yep.
Not fair.
No.
Maybe something from the Holden side. If you remember 2016 Bathurst, like there's a whole bunch of Holdens. Fairness. Who should have won that one and who didn't?
Yep.
The Russell and Rick championships. I mean, let's think about how they won the accumulators. We were talking about it back then. They didn't really win that many races, but they accumulated and they won in the system that was working.
Yeah.
And probably the final one that I had, that I was thinking about was that Dutton comment, right? Where it was so important, have him or have him off, right? These are the emotions, but this is like the fairness play that we've seen a million times. And I've got that kind of framework of those examples. We've seen it so much through this sport. And sometimes life and motorsport isn't fair based on what you want the outcome to be. And so I guess that, give me your take of just like the verbal diarrhea, because I'm freaking angry about it. But give us your take on this fairness, all right?
All right. Well, look, sport's not fair. Never has been, never will be. Unfortunately, we don't always get who we want to win. I mean, F1 is a prime example of that this year.
Don't.
No, I know, triggered. But you're right. So we talk about, there's a lot of talk about, should Wood and should WAU be given this $400 and something thousand fine by the FIA for having an impact because he wasn't part of this and blah, 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 blah. But all right, rewind. 2012, here's Duddo actually giving the directive of either pass them or have them off.
Yeah.
Right. Or Rick Kelly taking Lowndes out at Phillip Island in 06. Or Rick Kelly being a pest on the back of Ambrose in 05 at Surfers Paradise. Or how many do you want me to bring up? Right? There are so many things that happen over time that are fair/unfair, but that's sport. What we wanted to inject into this sport was what's been missing for a fucking long time, to mind you, is some excitement, some intrigue, some relevance. And we get that, and we get the emotion that comes with that, and we get potentially the hero and villain next year because of that. And yet everyone's sitting here crying about the fact that their driver that they thought should have won didn't win. But that's the point. The driver you thought should have won didn't win. You feel that emotion because of this system. It's perfect. That's what you want, right? We're sitting here going, yeah, because Chaz finally won a championship. But equally, if he hadn't, I wouldn't be sitting here saying Broc Feeney's a prick or Woody's an asshole or whatever. I'd be saying, well done, Broc Feeney, because he did what I said he probably couldn't do at the start of the year.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's, it's just this notion that effectively the final system was in play, and throughout the year, even Brock and Whincup, and Brown, like all of them from the Red Bull camp, they knew that their team was the biggest vulnerability because of the success that they have. The amount of times they were talking about Brock and they're like, oh, don't you wish it was in the old model because you'd be streaming ahead? And even he went, yeah, that would have been lovely, but we've got this new system and I've got to just keep the race wins going. I've got to perform at the right time. So halfway through the year, they knew this could be an eventual outcome. Yeah. And it's probably Triple Eight that are most vulnerable or most likely to have a bad outcome because they're pretty much always going to be the two cars at the top of the field somewhere. So
always. But you could make that argument for WAU because Woody's been fast all year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know Scotty Pye just tried to make that argument of, it's just a normal year for WAU. That's just how they see it, blah, blah, blah. But Scott, you've forgotten the last 2 years, right? The Fords haven't had a chance. They really haven't.
Good point. Especially that first year in Gen 3 and mixed last year. Yep.
So all that shows is that Chaz has been the consistent runner of the Ford Brigade and roughly where he's finished. It's got nothing to do with this year's championship. Absolutely nothing. And you can't look back and say, well, that was the same. Just like we can't look back and say, what happened to Cito, what happened to, or what Dutton said or whatever. You can't put that now. All these what ifs that you have are just what ifs. They're your own personal fantasy. They're not fact. They're not what happened. No. You lost. Get over it. Fucking there has to be a winner and a loser.
Yeah, and be gracious. Like the Triple Eight just don't ever seem to be. There's always those sour grapes, as we said. They can't seem to accept that they were beaten. Arguably at their own game, they've always been the best and probably still are strategy. Groves are, pretty damn good at it now, where they've flipped the lead a little bit. But like the performance of the car in terms of car speed, being in the right place at the right time, like all of these things. They've been always, making sure they knew all the rules, how things work, and extract the best outcome of performance they could. Yep. And WAU, really, they just beat them this year in that final system in the new process. And, the what ifs. Well, if Chaz and WAU weren't focused so heavily on the final system, they might have put more effort into some of the earlier rounds, where they just needed to get consistent enough to get into the 10 to make sure and get that run home happening. So, I think if we could close out in terms of the final system, I'll let you have a little piece to give me your thoughts, but I'm sure it's pretty much like the same as mine. This championship probably would have been over probably the prior round, but most definitely by that Friday. And the event itself would have been just one of those normal rounds that just happens, and c'est la vie, Broc won. The fact that we had every race, the high turnout at the track. We haven't seen the coverage of the television KO stuff yet, but I'm sure there was a really high peak of interest because of the final system. And I, for one, think it doesn't mean it can't be tweaked in some ways. I don't want to see too much of a change though, because
No.
I feel like it's working really well.
Yeah.
But the fact is, this final system is one of the best things that Supercars has done in a very long time, probably since Tony Cochran reinvented it. So, it has been amazing since Bathurst. The amount of views, the way the drivers are performing, and the anxiety levels, the pressure, everything has been amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a wonderful thing for the sport.
Yeah, I agree. It's a wonderful thing for the sport for not just those reasons, though. It's a wonderful thing for the sport because it's gone somewhat viral around the world, and that
Yep.
brings in new sponsorship opportunities. It brings, it just brings money to the sport. And the one thing this sport right now really needs is that it needs the investment back in it so that they can continue to build a relevant series again. And you have to reinvent the wheel, just as Cochran did in 97 when he brought in V8 supercars. You've got to change it, and you've got to make moves, and you have to look forward. You can't look back. And yes, okay, we can probably make small changes, but just they have to be small and limiting, because
Yep.
I saw Scott Pye make a reference to finals, like as in
Yeah.
AFL finals, and he's like, the one that wins the minor premiership gets 2 shots at it. But what you failed to see, because you were saying that Broc deserved a second shot in that last race, what you actually failed to see is that those football teams don't get a second shot at the last round. They get a second shot at it at the start. So,
Yeah.
I think potentially you could say, if he bombed out at the first run, whatever, that he gets a free pass into Sandown, but that's where it needs to stop. How many free kicks do you need? It needs to be enough. I mean, the other thing you said was, there should be 100-point gap, but going into the final round between the leader and that. No, because that just means that the leader rolls around doing nothing and just finishing in 7th place. But that's not what this is built for. So you need to retain what this is about, bringing the level of emotion and everything else into it, and build upon it. Not try and cut it back, right? Just because you're upset with the result. So I think everyone needs to take a chill pill, relax a little bit, and actually see it for what it was, which was an epic final system where we had epic racing throughout the whole thing. It was crazy. There wasn't a race that didn't have something going on. And I think Supercars, I don't applaud you often, but I think you should be applauded, because it is the single greatest change you've made in probably over 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely concur with that. The comments that Scotty was making, like it's almost like the Crows got 2 shots, they got their shots. Broc had the same thing. He got his automatic into the first, and then again because of the points buffer, and in that pod that we had at the start after the first round of the final system, I was talking about I think the points gap is too great because there's not enough jeopardy. Because ultimately Broc had to have some significant failures for him to drop down the order. And so I think it's great the way it is. Small tweaks we can probably make, but that point system, if they increase it more for the leader, it's basically just employing the old model and just laying the new final system over the top where people don't really have a chance to win, even though they're in the finals. So, yeah, that's
and exactly right, exactly right. And I know you talked really quickly, and I'll just touch on this just before we close it out. You talked about the fact that, yes, Broc, if you go to the old points, Broc probably closes this out with a round to go, whatever. But here's the thing, with everybody else playing the game differently, they would have raced differently, which means the outcomes would have been different, and we just don't know.
right.
You're in the what if scenario again, and it's not what if, it's just what is. So I'm sorry, we knew what it was coming in, and at the end of the day, Triple Eight got outfoxed. And congratulations to WAU and Chaz, because that finals run was freaking mint. And can we just have a quick shout out to Kai Allen? Like,
legendary.
That boy, unfreaking believable.
I know, like the amount of, I guess, even we had some hesitation that he'd made it into the finals, but did he, like, from a rookie to stand up and actually take it? You think about some of the results. He was almost always in that kind of top 5 bracket, apart from a few small things here and there. Like, he was exceptional and didn't ever look like he was under pressure, like he was flustered. He just went and delivered, and I'll call it now. I don't think we have said it before, but DJR, you really did lose out on that one. I hope you haven't lost out. I hope Ryling Gray shows that same kind of result and outcomes for you. But Kai Allen, he is going to be a future champion, no doubt.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I can't fault his finals performance at all. He's regularly been in the 10, up near the 5 or slightly ahead, and it just, he's never overextended. So I don't think he ever really put himself in a position to win. But ultimately, I think he knew that this was all about getting experience and understanding of the people that he'll be racing later on down the track. I don't think he ever thought he would be in this position anyway. So excellent result. Well done, Penwright. What could have been for Matt Payne, but again, that's a what if. What if?
It is a what if. I mean, what if the Supercars commentary team didn't sit there all sad about the fact that Broc had lost, and like, what if they actually just celebrated? And let us keep the more positive side to this. Well done to Garth Tander. I know you've been an enemy on the Holden side for so many years, but what an absolute superstar this guy has turned into. Trying to keep them on track and to celebrate Chaz, and to Jess Yates, who recognized it and started trying to flip the turn of the commentary team, because my goodness, Scaife, fucking disrespectful. Your talking points, your sadness, that was the biggest tragedy that happened. As we close out this, I've started another point. I'm very sorry, mate, but
you've flipped in real quickly, so we'll call it a segue.
Call it a segue, because I was like, we both recognized that straight away during the coverage. It was a fucking debacle.
There was no understanding of hierarchy in the media coverage. They didn't show Chaz crossing the line. Fuck you, Supercars, for doing that. They showed Nick Percat. Don't care. Fuck off. Right?
Wrong car, bro.
Then I had to listen to a whole bunch of whinging comments from Mark Scaife, which I really don't care about. I don't have any interest in what that man has to say. I don't believe he has any value to this team whatsoever. And the faster he's off my TV, the better. Thank God for Garth Tander, as you said, and Jessica Yates, because watching those two, looking at Tander's face, he was just mortified at what was coming out of Scaife's head. Kind of like what Jensen Button looks like when Danica Patrick is talking. So you can see where Scaife sits on the run, because he is an absolute dead shit. And then Jess, for recognizing that they were going down that path and going, how good's Chaz Mostert? Shit, I need to turn this around because otherwise this is going to be the worst end to the season we've ever had. And to give you a red hot tip, Jess, it still kind of was, because getting back to the hierarchy of things, you got to show the champion. You have to show the champion. Then you need to go to the race winner. And then once all that excitement, elation, and everything else is played out, after that, you go to the stories of the people that had the hard day, right? The Broc Feeneys and the like that it didn't come off for. You can't, like, you made sure, and this is Supercars and probably Mark Scaife because he probably has his finger in the pie. You went straight to Broc, basically. It was all about Broc, all about this. And that's not, I'm not trying to disrespect Broc in any way, but when you have a champion already set and done, you have to celebrate that champion and you have to celebrate the race winner. And then everything else comes after.
Yeah. Well said, mate. Well said. And I guess with that, we can kind of wrap up this whole thing. Look out for our other pod that's out as well. And we will catch you in the next video.
See you guys.
Bye.